So today we're going to talk about the 14 laws of self-improvement. And I got this idea from Hamza, who made the 13 rules of self-improvement. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to one-up that motherfucker. Because them rules are shit. And I also got it from this, The Tao of Wu by the RZA, which we spoke about a bit before, but it's a great book written by the guy who founded the Wu-Tang Clan. So yeah, that's pretty cringe. Right, so rule number one is it's all good. Very simple rule, but basically what it means is just life's good, man. And it's kind of linked with things like meditation and spirituality and a bit of Buddhism. But when you sit there and you think hard enough and you meditate the most deeply, you realize that deep down at its core, life is good. And it's an idea that's been spoke about by the Buddha, by Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius. But there's no inherent bad in this world. The table is good. The fucking flower is good. My desk is good. The tree is good. There's nothing bad. If you sit there with any one thing, it's good. There's a famous, not a famous quote, but a quote I like from the Dharma Bums where he spends a bit of time, Jack Kerouac that is, meditating in a forest. And at some point he says, and at that point I realized that the whole world was ecstasy. Not the drug, the feeling. But it's this idea that at its core, the world is good. I mean, what the RZA says, which is a bit fucking ridiculous, but he bangs on about how protons are heavier than electrons and protons are positive and so the world is good. And fair dues, we can talk about it like that. But at its core, that's what it means to me, is that the world is good. It's all good is law number one. Now, law number two is knowledge is the foundation of all things. It's an idea, again, from the Tao of Wu, and it's about divine mathematics, and this idea that at its base, you need to start developing knowledge. You need to start learning things. You need to spend a lot of time being a student of life and just learning. Learn geography, history, psychology, science. Pay attention in school. Learn maths and English. All these things don't seem important to you, but in the grand scheme of everything, they're very important. If you're out of school now, go back and continue learning. Go and do a degree in something if you've not done that yet, or a master's or a PhD, or just learn in your own free time. For example, now I've spent a lot of time these past few months learning psychology, reading textbooks and getting proper in depth with that. It's just, you need to have this hunger for knowledge, this ability to bring things into your body, because so many people, and too many people these days, finish their lives of education at around 18. They finish with school and get a couple of A-levels and that's it. They never learn a thing again, or maybe they go to university and the same thing happens at 22 or 21. They never learn anything ever again. Well, that can't be you, my friend. You need to be a student of life. You need to be that guy who's constantly learning. The number three link to that is wisdom is knowledge in action. Wisdom is something you need to develop, is the ability to take the things that you've learned and apply them. For example, with my psychology, I will learn something and try and apply it by teaching it to you or using that thing in my daily life. Certain supplements that you can take to reduce inflammation, or perhaps the idea of task switching and focus and deep work. These ideas that we spoke about before, or addiction, for example, is where you can actualize your knowledge. Wisdom is the manifestation of knowledge, and that's what you need to start to develop after that. Then number four is train your body, harden your mind. And it's a two-pronged attack that you need to start developing. But it's to constantly, every single day, be training your body in some sort of way, either endurance training, resistance training. Just go to the gym, man. Lift some weight or go on a run, or just train your body every day. Develop some kind of toughness, some fortitude, and at the same time harden your mind. So the same things, exercise will harden your mind for sure, but cold showering, reading, doing hard things. The things that callous your mind is something that David Goggins likes to say. But yeah, harden your mind. Become a resilient person. Become the kind of person that doesn't crumble under pressure, doesn't crumble under suffering. If I left you, brother, in the fucking forest, I'd want to come back the next day and see you happy. Do you know what I mean? That's the kind of person that you need to become. The kind of person that can be put in any situation but has the resilience and the mental fortitude to come out of it on the other side, not just okay, but having learned something from the experience. That's what you need to develop. Now, number 5 is your family is your universe. And family here I use in a very careful way to mean you can build up this kind of family. So for me, my family is, I'm fortunate enough to have 2 parents who I have a good relationship with, kind of. So that's part of my family. My sister is part of my family, but at the same time, I have a few friends that I would consider part of my family. My girlfriend, of course, I consider now as part of my family. And it's the idea that your family is your universe. It's this idea that self-improvement inside of a vacuum is kind of meaningless, bro. Like a lot of these things like monk mode that teach you to ignore all forms of social interaction, of familial friendships and romantic relationships to pursue these goals. They become kind of meaningless in the grand scheme of things, because what does it mean if I'm successful and wealthy and spiritual if I have no conduit for that? What will I do with all the love that I develop if I have nowhere to pour that into? If I have no friends to talk to and laugh with and be humorous with, or no girlfriend to love, or no parents to, I don't know, well, to love as well. But it's this idea that self-improvement can't exist inside of a vacuum. You need to develop a close-knit community around you. Your family becomes your universe. Number 6 is control your mind daily through meditation. And we spoke already a bit about meditation, about how you can see through meditation that the world is good. But at the same time, meditation and the daily practice of meditation for 6, 7, 8 minutes a day is very useful in callousing your mind in that way, in controlling your mind and your emotions. For me, I can tell very clearly when there's a day when I've meditated and one where I haven't. When I have, I'll go through my day with much more emotional control. Things won't annoy me. I won't be swayed particularly easily. I can call my parents and we won't get into a massive argument. Meditation controls your mind. It's a very useful practice to pick up and a very easy practice to do, along with the other benefits it has, which we've spoken about so many times and we don't have to go into. But it's a very useful practice to build, to learn how to meditate for 6, 7, 8 minutes a day, every day increasing by just 30 seconds or a minute, setting your timer and just sitting there, breathing, focusing on that breath, and every time your mind strays to bring it back. And it's this idea that that is the power of meditation, and not enough people understand that. The power of meditation is in bringing your mind back to focus. Again, we've spoken about that before. Now, number 7 has 2 names, but the name I like to give it, because it's easier, is input equals output. But another word for it is emotions follow motions. But the idea is that too many times in this life, you wonder why you feel bad. And in those times, you need to look at the way that you're living. Input equals output. Your output are your emotions. Your input is your actions. And when you sit there and you have an output that's bad, that's depressed maybe even, look to your input, because so often the input is a life where you're putting in bad. Cigarettes, nicotine, pornography, fast food, sitting around all day watching TV, and you're not putting in anything good either. No purposeful work, no education or learning, no meditation or cold exposure, nothing good, no love or contact with human beings. And then you wonder why you feel bad. Well, it's a very simple formula to remember. It's input equals output, and a formula that you can come back to time and again every time you start to feel in a rut. Every time I feel like I'm entering a rut, I step back and I ask myself, all right, well, what am I inputting? And that's the first thing that needs to change. Number 8 is you have to want to change. And this again is a crucial idea, and one I've spoken about so many times, but also one that I don't think enough people understand. And there's a couple contexts to it, and one is in yourself, and the other one is with other people when you're trying to help others. But the basic idea is that for a lot of mental conditions, or when people feel bad, when they feel depressed perhaps, or they're living a bad life, you need to want to change that yourself. If I speak to a depressed person and I tell them to do all these different things that they can do, it doesn't really matter. They're not going to do them, or even if they do, they're not going to do them with any sort of consistency unless they actually want to beat that depression themselves. You see, with mental conditions like depression, because they're inside of you, you develop a certain affinity towards them, a certain identity with them. If you have a broken leg, for example, you can see it, it's external. But depression, mental illness, is an internal thing. You identify yourself with it, and so it becomes very hard to see a life without it. It becomes more so a part of you than a parasite. And noticing that and realizing that and saying, okay, well, no, this is something bad, this is something I need to change, is the first step in growing as a person. Now, number 9, the 9th law is when things go bad, double down. And we've again spoken about this before, but it's the idea that when you're in a rut in your life, right? When you're feeling negative, when things aren't going particularly well, that is when you double down. That is when you go twice as hard. And you love people that extra bit. You meditate for twice as long. You spend longer in the cold shower. You spend longer in the gym. That is when you double down, when you feel the worst. And that's how you push through and come out of the other side. Number 10 is more of a way of looking at life as a whole. And it's the idea of chapters, not endings. It's the idea that many times in your life you'll come to a point where things seem like they're over. You'll leave school and it'll seem like you're losing all of those years. You'll leave university and the same thing will happen. You'll move city, or a loved one will die, and things will seem like they're over. But a better way to look at the world is that those are chapters. Look at your life as a book and see each of those things as just chapters of it. School was a chapter. Then I went to university and that was another chapter, and now I'm on the next chapter of my life. It doesn't mean that things from the previous chapters might not come back, but it's a different way of looking at it. It's less linear. It's interesting. I can see it very much so in my own life. I went to school and I made fucking great friends there, people I still speak to now. But it wasn't necessarily sad when I left. I realised that for all the sadness, there was also a lot of good. I was moving on and doing new things. The same when I broke up with my first girlfriend. There was this idea of, okay, it's tragic, but there's good on the other side of it too. It's the idea that everything has good and bad. The idea that just because something seems lost to you now, there are positives that might come from it. Every cloud has a silver lining, I guess. Now, next, number 11 is something we say at the end of every video, and it's manifest excellence. It's the idea that in this life you need to start wanting more. You can't settle for mediocrity. I mean, it's very easy to see a life planned out for you now, to see this 9-to-5 existence where you're not really going to do much else with your life and be kind of comfortable and happy with that. You've got the car, you've got the wife, you've got the house. What else do I really need? Well, the idea of this is that you should strive for more. Comfort and mediocrity aren't really enough to bring anything to your life, to live that life where at the end of your days you're not going to look back and regret the things that you didn't do. It's the idea that every day you should manifest this excellence. You should strive for nothing less. You should work harder than you think you can, and you should stay up longer doing these things. You should wake up earlier. You should strive to be an excellent person. You should go to the gym every single day, even when you don't want to. When someone wants something from you, you should give to them your service, your affections, whatever. You should manifest excellence in every aspect of your life. Now, number 12 is a girl won't fix your life. And this is something, again, that's very important for a lot of people to hear, and something I wish I'd heard when I was younger. I think a lot of us these days, a big problem that we face is we're waiting for an answer. Too many of us are waiting for something to come out of somewhere and fix up our lives. Whether that be a girlfriend or a friend or a job opportunity or something, but specifically in this context with a girl. Too many people spend their days believing that a woman is what will change them. That they're this weird and this depressed because they're a virgin. That the second they have sex, they'll be happy again. Well, I've got news for you, brother, you won't. I was like that. I waited and waited and waited and really wanted a girlfriend. Then when I got my first girlfriend, when I was 15, a couple months later, same thing, bro. I still felt the same thing because a girl won't fix your life. You need to fix that. It needs to be an internal process of building a life that you're proud of. Number 13 is kill your alter egos. And it's this idea of trying to think about your identity and seeing how you act differently in different scenarios. For example, when you're at school, you act very differently to when you speak to your parents, or when you're at home alone, or when you're with your girlfriend. These are these alter egos that you have, 4, 5, 6 different personalities that turn on when you're in different scenarios. And I still see that in myself. It's such a hard habit to break, but when I'm speaking with my girlfriend, it's very different to when I'm talking to my friends. And in a way, that's a good thing. I wouldn't want to speak to my girlfriend like I spoke to my friends and vice versa. But you need to have the same core character. You can't be doing stuff in one scenario that you wouldn't want someone else to know about, or you wouldn't want to do with another person. That was me, again, in my first relationship. I would do drugs and smoke and drink with all my friends, but with my girlfriend, I wouldn't want to do any of that. And that was a weird disconnect between those two lives, which ultimately created a lot of friction inside of that relationship. The same with your parents. Again, don't do things that you wouldn't necessarily be proud to tell your parents about. That's harder because parents seem to be a lot more protective over a lot of things, but it's a good way to live your life, in all honesty. It's just to think, would I do this in front of certain other people? Try and get rid of as many, at least, of those alter egos as you can. Split it down and try and distill your core personality from that. The true version of yourself who's happy and content just being. And then finally, number 14, we have a very important law, which is who are you trying to impress? And that's the law that basically states we do a lot of things in this life to impress other people. We do a lot of things to impress the popular kids at school or this girl that we fancy. And that's no bad thing. Impressing people can be a very powerful thing. Impressing your teachers can be good. Impressing your parents can be good. These can be things to strive for. But the key part of the question is, who are you trying to impress? Ask yourself, why are you doing the things that you're doing? And if the people that you're trying to impress are actually worth impressing. If you live your life trying to impress all the kids that do drugs and are having sex and smoking weed, then even if you impress them, you've lost. You think you've gained something, but all you've gained is the approval of people whose approval in many ways is damning. Yeah, maybe you got the girl, but you had to do things that you didn't think you'd ever do to get her. It's this idea you've always got to think about, is who are you trying to impress? And if the answer is someone that you wouldn't want to be, then stop doing the things to try and impress them. And this is something that kids at school need to hear. And I'm not sure how young my audience is, but this is what I needed to hear at 13, 14, 15, 16 even. Was this idea that, why are you trying to impress these people when you don't want to be like them? Why are you trying to impress this group of people when if you were like them, you'd be annoyed at yourself? Why are you trying to do both things, trying to live this life of kind of positivity and light, but also doing these things of darkness to try and impress that side of the world. Well, don't. You can't impress them. So don't do it, because if you do, you've lost. Anyway, those are the 14 laws of self-improvement. I hope you gained some value from that video, and if you did, please drop a subscribe. Come and chat to me on the Discord or give me a call. And manifest excellence, brother. I'm so proud of you. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.